Hi Reddit, throwaway account here because some of my friends follow my main well, you'll see why that matters. My name is Katya. I'm from Kiev, Ukraine, and this happened in early 2025. Before you jump to conclusions, yes, there's war here. Yes, it's complicated. And yes, somehow my life managed to get even more insane than that. Let me back up. I'm 34. I run a pretty successful chain of eco-cleaning businesses in Kiev and Lviv. I started it before the pandemic, scaled it during it, and despite everything, we're still going strong. I have over 40 employees now. I pay taxes. I donate to veterans. I've done everything right. Except when it comes to men. Oh, men. My last husband, I'm calling him Maxim, was a literal gigolo. Not figuratively. Not just a guy who mooched off women. He actually got paid by women. And I married him. But that's not even the wild part. It started simple. I met Maxim at a fundraiser for displaced families in late 2023. He was charming. Handsome in that perfectly sculpted, Instagram influencer way. He quoted poetry. He knew all the good wines. At first, I thought he was too good to be true. Spoiler, he was. But I ignored the signs. That he always had new clothes. That he never talked about his job in specifics. That he had a way of disappearing for whole weekends without telling me where. 6 months into our relationship, we got married. Don't ask why. Maybe I was lonely. Maybe I was tired of pretending I was okay on my own. Maybe I wanted someone to just get it. For a while, it worked. He was good with my friends. He made the bed in the morning. He always smelled amazing. Until one day, I got a message from a woman named Alina. Hi, are you Maxim's wife? I was. She was his client. Yes, client. As in, he'd been seeing women for money. High-end escorts make decent money in Kiev if you know the circles. I didn't. Maxim did. At first, I thought it was a lie. But then came the screenshots. And the photos. And the invoices. I threw him out the next day. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just changed the locks and called my lawyer. We didn't have a prenup, but everything in the business was in my name. He tried to contest the condo. Failed. But that wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part came later, when my ex from years ago, Danya, came back. Danya and I dated when I was 27. He was smart, a little older, the kind of guy who quoted philosophy and acted like he'd read every book that ever existed. He worked in military administration. We broke up after I found out he'd cheated on me with someone from his unit. I moved on. Or so I thought. Early 2024, right after the Maxim mess, I got a call from the draft board. Ms. Katerina H., you've been selected for mobilization. I laughed. Like really laughed. I said, no, there must be a mistake. I run a company. I have no military training. They said, that's irrelevant. Long story short, Danya had used an old database from when I volunteered for logistics in 2022 to re-enlist me. But not just anywhere. He'd signed me up for a frontline logistics battalion in Zaporizhia. I was stunned. I called him. What the hell is this? He was calm. Too calm. Just doing my duty. Everyone must serve, Katya. Except it wasn't duty. It was revenge. He knew about Maxim. He knew I was vulnerable. He thought I'd go quietly. He was wrong. I called in favors. I'd cleaned the offices of 3 top defense lawyers over the years. I knew things. I had emails. I built a case. Abuse of power. Fraud. Retaliation. It took months, but I filed a civil case and a military ethics complaint. In the end, the court ruled in my favor. Danya was discharged. I got compensation and, due to his unpaid debts, I legally claimed his apartment. Yes, I own my ex-boyfriend's apartment now. The one where he broke my heart. Where he plotted to destroy me. But don't cheer just yet. Because somewhere in the middle of all this, I realized something else. I've spent years building walls so strong that even when someone decent comes along, I can't trust them. I keep expecting betrayal. Men don't know how to love me unless they're using me. That's what I've learned. So yeah, this is the story of how my husband turned out to be a sex worker and my ex tried to enlist me as revenge. But it's also the story of a woman trying to survive Kiev in 2025 with her dignity, her business, and a tiny sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, there's something better out there. Anyway, thanks for listening, Reddit. Maybe next year I'll finally meet a guy who doesn't want my money, my apartment, or my downfall. I thought it was over, that I'd finally found closure. But Kiev isn't a city that lets you rest easy. Not when you've humiliated men with fragile egos and connections in high places. 3 weeks after taking over Danya's apartment, I found a letter slipped under my door. No envelope. Just a single sheet of paper that read, "You don't belong here." No signature. Just that. The next day, my tires were slashed. The surveillance camera I'd installed last month? Somehow disabled. I wasn't scared. I was furious. I went to the police. They shrugged. Probably teenagers. Teenagers who knew about my case and had military-grade cutting tools? Right. So I did what any rational businesswoman would do. I hired my own security. That's how I met Leon. He was ex-military. Quiet. Polite. Scary when he wanted to be. For 2 weeks, he walked me from my office to my car, checked my building every morning, and trained me to use pepper spray like a pro. And then, just like in a movie, I started to feel something. I caught myself wondering if he had a girlfriend. I laughed at his deadpan jokes. One evening, after a false alarm with a suspicious package, it was just a shoebox, we sat on the apartment stairs, and I told him everything. Maxim. Danya. My fear. My pride. He listened. And then he said the one thing no man had said to me in years. "You didn't deserve any of that." I nearly cried. But I didn't. Because that's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. New message. "You think you're safe with your dog watching you?" I see everything. Attached, a photo. Of me and Leon. On the stairs. Taken from above. That night, we relocated to a safe house owned by one of my lawyer friends. I didn't go to work the next day. Or the next. On the 3rd day, I got another message. "You owe me. You ruined my life. And I'll ruin yours back. Danya." He disappeared after the court ruling, but apparently he wasn't done. But here's the twist. I wasn't his only victim. Leon and I started digging. And what we found was a trail. For other women. All with similar stories, enlisted illegally, harassed, humiliated. One had even lost her job after a falsified military summons. It was a pattern. So I went public. I didn't name names, but I posted my story, this story, on a private Facebook group for Ukrainian women in defense and civil service. The response was overwhelming. Messages. Comments. More stories. It wasn't revenge anymore. It was justice. I worked with a journalist friend. We compiled everything. Dates. Names. Documents. And we published a report. It went viral. And guess what? Danya got arrested. Turns out, he'd been running a coercion ring, manipulating data, reassigning women, using mobilization as a tool for personal vendettas. He's facing 12 years. But even now, I don't feel safe. Not because of Danya. Because of what he exposed. How easily my life, any woman's life, can be twisted by power and bitterness. How fragile success feels when the world is built like this. Leon stayed. He's still here. We're not together. Not officially. But sometimes he brings me coffee in the morning. Sometimes we sit on the balcony and say nothing. Sometimes I dream about what it would be like if I could believe in people again. I'm not there yet. But I'm trying. And that's where I'll leave this story for now. Kiev is still buzzing below me. The war hasn't ended. The rain hasn't stopped. But I've reclaimed something that's more important than money, more important than revenge. My voice. Thanks for reading. Katia.